Good afternoon. I'm Connor Fowler,
And I'm Matt Smith.
and you are now listening to Apocalypse Duds. We are joined today by the venerable Jim Parker, merchandise director at the Armory, head honcho of his own brand, Tazwell, virtuoso guitarist, southerner, New Yorker, redhead, and certainly much more. Thanks for coming, Jim.
I don't know that you maybe gave me more than I actually have, man. Thanks very much.
Well, that's our in the business of doing, and you always have to help out. You always have to help out a redhead.
Yeah, I know. We need all the help we can get, man. Yeah.
How's everything going
Cursed
today?
breed.
It's good. It is. Yeah, New York is threatening spring, but it was still like a high of 42 or something today.
Oh, yeah.
It was jacket weather today, baby.
Yeah. It was.
And that's nice. That's nice. Tweed and a jacket. That's so nice.
That is actually what I've been wearing today. So yeah, nailed it.
Well, speaking of that, we have a feature. We can walk straight into it. The ensemble investigation. What are you wearing? Head to toe or vice versa?
Head to toe. All right. Well, on my head, I've got these over-the-ear headphones, but I did have a hat on by Cody Willema. I'm wearing a tweed jacket from the Armory. The cloth is Fox Brothers. Pretty sure I added that to, it was part of the Ready to Wear to collection a little bit ago. I think this was one of my picks, but I can't remember. I'm wearing a Tazwell wool gabardine snap front shirt. It's the Stay Tucked with a bandana, and actually I'm wearing a lot of Tazwell. That's just how it is these days. Some of the Appalachians 5 pockets in desert sand, and I'm wearing these old ostrich cowboy boots from this kick-ass boot store close to where my parents live.
Oh, hell yeah.
Ostrich cowboy boot truly anchors the fit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just
what color are they?
They're like a tawny brown.
Tawny brown. Very nice. Very nicely done. I know that this is your job, so very nice.
Yeah, you gotta have, in menswear, you have to have like 25 different descriptions of brown,
Totally.
So that's
totally.
It's important.
Yeah. I've also got to
There's
ask.
like biscuit.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got your usual tan, medium brown, dark brown, and then you've got like fawn and various other brown colors. Jim, what is the hat?
The hat is it's I think Cody calls this whiskey, because this is menswear and we drink, I guess. But yeah, it's sort of a Western fedora. It's got a tiny gambler's bow on it, and it's got a bound edge, which is pretty amazing because he does that himself by hand. He makes the hats himself, but the binding he whip stitches, and he can only do so many. Like he could do like 2 or 3 a week like this. Otherwise, he hurts his hand and he can't make stuff anymore. So,
that's killer.
Feel very special to have it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So something we kind of like to lead most shows with is what is your clothing or your first clothing memory?
It's deep.
Yeah. I have 2. I think one is like an inherited memory because I'm probably too young. But this is, people ask me like kind of how I knew I liked clothes, and this is the real reason, I think, is like when I was a toddler, my mom would quiz me like on learning my colors by asking me what color Vanna White's dress was for the day. So that's like, yeah. So, and maybe that's why I know so many color names, because like, eventually yellow is not acceptable. It's got to be like canary or something like that.
Right.
But my first like real clothing memory, where I was like, oh, I like clothes, was it was like early 90s. I was in first grade, and we used to do this like weekly thing where each student would go outside with a teaching assistant and do like a reading exercise, and we had like a special folder for that work, like worksheets on sounding out words and stuff. And my folder was purple. And for whatever reason, around that time, we're talking like probably 1993-ish. There was a lot of Colorado Rockies stuff at Walmart, and my clothes came from Walmart.
That was the inaugural season.
I remember, yeah. Was that it? Is that I did not know. I'm not a baseball fan, and like I wasn't then either. I just had had Colorado Rockies stuff. I had like this. I had a T-shirt with I'm pretty sure Bugs and Daffy on it, and they're wearing like the uniforms. And the Colorado Rockies or the logo had like a bit of purple in it, and I was wearing purple shorts, and I had my purple folder, and I remember like being really pleased, like so that felt complete, and I didn't know why, but that sticks out to me, and that's probably my first clothing memory.
Oh, that's kind of
even awesome. A boy knows.
Yeah.
And also, let's give a shout out to the 90s absolutely unhinged Looney Tunes and other cartoon shit. Because, like,
man,
if you didn't grow up in the 90s, that's really, like, not something you realize was so prevalent.
Yeah. I was playing a gig last night, and this woman was talking to me, like she's a girlfriend of a bandmate, and she was talking about The Simpsons. And I suddenly just had these memories of wearing like a lot of stuff with Bart Simpson on it, but I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know why it was okay to like have Bart on my T-shirt with like, you know, it probably said like "eat my shorts" or whatever it was that he said, and like then like, but I wasn't allowed to watch the show. Nah, I don't know. But,
like. And one of the funny things about that is, like, there was definitely a ton of, like, Simpsons actual licensed merchandise. But there's also an entirely different, like, almost subculture of sorts of bootleg Bart shit from back in the day. Anywhere from, like, Desert Storm shit to, like, him dressed as Rambo. You know, it's... I don't think that Gen Zers understand how weird the 80s and 90s actually were.
Yeah, they've got this like kind of pastiche, kind of probably, you know, like when I was a bit older, I was really into the 80s, like early 80s, and I was, you know, I would buy like Repro Van Halen T-shirts and stuff, but I think I was missing some context. And yes, I think young people, because I guess I'm no longer a young person, are missing the context of when we were growing up. Like, it was really weird that I had a Colorado Rockies shirt. I didn't play baseball. I was terrible at baseball. I didn't watch baseball, and I lived in Tennessee, not Colorado. So why did I have a Colorado Rockies shirt? No idea.
Yeah. So, Jim, just out of curiosity, how old are you?
36.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in East Tennessee in a little town called Midtown, which is in Roane County. It's like outside of Knoxville. Midtown has like about 1,500 people.
Gotcha. Yeah. And now you are a New Yorker, which is wild.
Yeah, I've lived in New York for almost 8 years. Yeah.
Hell
yes. Yeah. So big jump. But I made little small jumps in between. So
yeah, certainly. Yeah. As we all tend to do.
Yeah, sure.
So what were people wearing in Midtown, you said?
Yeah, Midtown. Yeah.
When you were growing up, what did you see? I mean, were there things that influenced you down the line?
Yeah, I mean, we can yes. So, I mean, there was this is my dad, if he were alive today, would be 93. And
wow.
So he grew up, he was born in 1930, born on a tobacco farm during the Great Depression, right? And he kind of, like a little later on, like in the 2000s, when like American workwear was like really having that moment, it was kind of weird every time I'd put on a chambray shirt or like do double denim or something, because I just felt like I was cosplaying as my dad, because that's what he would wear. So that was like an early, and like it's a constant influence on how I dress and how I develop products and stuff like that. I think about him in that sense a lot in like that time period. but then, yeah, kind of, I think about the term workwear a lot because, the stuff that we kind of fetishize as workwear, the people, I mean, Midtown is just like, it's next to a small town called Kingston, which has like a coal plant. So, they're actual, like, it's like people working in a coal plant, and it's like a lot of working class stuff. So, I saw a lot of like, and my mom works in the medical field. She's director of a nursing home. So there were a lot of scrubs, and then like a lot of denim is kind of what I saw growing up.
Right. Yeah, because that's like lower Appalachia. Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and so there's tons of coal. There's tons of like legitimate, adjacent or coal adjacent gigs that people do, and factories and shit that is all related to that.
Yeah, that's right. So, it was like, it was a lot of like Rustler and Wrangler, and that sort of stuff, and I guess Colorado Rockies t-shirts. So,
Side note: both Rustler and Wrangler denim have been woven in my hometown for a long time.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Mount Vernon Mills, one of their biggest mills here. Yeah.
I didn't know that you. Yeah, what's the town? That's
Somerville. It's in Tryon, Georgia, but Somerville is the main town. My great grandfather was the manager of the dairies that were there when it was Regal Mills in the 1930s and 40s.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's like.
Yeah, no salvage, sadly, but I think like that mill has done.
That's fine.
Like Lee, Wrangler, Rustler, all the subsidiaries like Maverick and shit. But they've basically been open for 100 and something years at this point.
They must have been the ones that developed the broken twill with Wrangler, then, right? They were the ones that did that.
I don't know if it was that mill particularly. I think that happened like prior to them getting the contract or whatever. Because Wrangler had their own mills at one point in Greensboro, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But they have woven various denims. Like they definitely did most of the Rustler shit when we were growing up.
That makes sense. I love that stuff too. And you said like unfortunately they don't do selvage, but honestly, I feel sometimes that's overrated.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, like thinking, most people don't think of the South as like this like textile heavy place, but it really was in a lot of ways for like a very long period of time. Like even still today.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's we can. I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but I've just obviously because of my own little brand, I have been researching a lot of textile production in the South, and I mean, like I learned at one point I think there were 9 denim manufacturers in Louisville, Kentucky alone. Like that's the South was just full of that stuff for a long time, and sadly, it's going away. So
when stuff was made domestically at all, they're huge places. Baltimore included, which is not even arguably. It is in the South, Baltimore.
Yes.
And Baltimore is a huge textile place, too. There's tons of suiting and menswear, like very fine stuff. Gone. Totally gone.
Yeah. I mean, where I grew up, Midtown is next to another town called Harriman. It's all in this small county, Roane County. And so sometimes I mix them up when I'm talking, but and that's just because they're all like within 5 minutes drive, and they all have like one stoplight, But Harriman had a huge knitting mill that closed before I was born, but I always heard the stories of that place. And then just right over 30 minutes drive to Knoxville, that's the largest underwear manufacturer in the country was there. That was Standard Knitting Mills, and of course Alpha Industries was there making 65s and stuff like that. So. Yeah, it was major.
I wanted to ask, since we are on the topic, people will say X is not a monolith, right? And I think the South is a thing that really is made into a monolith by almost everyone.
Yeah.
There's a horrible negative perception of the South, especially in the North. And so I was wondering what your experience with that has been. I was going to ask about your accent. Like, I have known plenty of people from the very deep South who no longer have an accent at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Accents are funny, man. And I unfortunately, I remember as a kid, like being embarrassed about a Southern accent, having one and stuff like that. And working to like get rid of it. And now, like, I listen to my mom, who has a great, like, sort of Appalachian accent, and my granny, who sounds like Dolly Parton. Like, they have amazing accents, and I'm like, damn, I really, I missed out.
So you're going into it a little bit now.
Dude,
Yeah. I mean, it's
not to put you on the spot, but it's like, it's very funny to see. Like, my dad, when he goes places, when he travels in the South, he has a Southern accent. He just does. But
of course. Yeah.
when he's in DC, which is where he is from, nothing like that. He's a bureaucrat.
Yeah. I mean, I can slip into it on purpose, but then also when I'm on the phone with my mom, like my wife has pointed out, like, you know, my voice changes. It becomes like Southern, you know what I mean? So like more Southern, it sounds, yeah. But I think about accents a lot because you're saying, I think this is like a huge topic, but like the South is not a monolith. Well, like Tennessee has at least two really distinctive, if not three, accents alone, just that one state.
Yeah.
You know, like, so there's, like you said earlier, I'm from like kind of lower Appalachia, right? And that has a specific accent. That's, I kind of think of it as that whole area was like, it was full of Scottish immigration.
Yep.
And so it's like similar. I was just in Scotland recently, and I was having these weird moments of like, everybody looks like my cousin. And like, I understand this really thick accent because it kind of sounds like, you know, my grandparents or something. And it's not exactly the same, but there's something there that feels familiar. But then like you move to Memphis and the accent is very different because that's like Mississippi River, like kind of almost Delta accent, not quite not a New Orleans accent, which even that, my wife is from New Orleans, and there are two or three really major accents there too. Like her dad speaks with what's called a Yat accent, and I hope that's not like super offensive and derogatory. I don't think it is, but that's what people refer to it as, and it's like different than like what you think of as like the kind of the Creole guy or something like that. So yeah, accents alone, like there's not the Americans think there's one general like English accent, and obviously there's not, and I'm not gonna even try to explain those, but or do one because I'm not a voice actor, but there are so many accents and dialects in the South because it's just, I mean, the culture is so diverse because of the immigration. Some of it unfortunately forced, but yeah, I think it's like beautiful and varied and incredibly important to American history.
And we're so scared of diversity. That's like the number one fear in America. I mean, arguably the number one fear globally is diversity, but it's so precious, really, and special. It just doesn't, it's like the ultimate underdog in a way, and it really doesn't get its due at all.
Yeah, I think about so like one of my hobbies is barbecuing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, right. And like people think of that as like a Southern thing, and it kind of is, but that came via like immigration on its own. But then like if you think about the different types of barbecue, like regional barbecue, like Texas does brisket and like very little sauce, but then like South Carolina does this with like a mustard sauce. Like the mustard sauce just came about because there was like German immigration there. And like, so that even the food that's like, people think of like barbecue as like a maybe Southern thing, but it's not like, it's not just one thing, and it's not one type of food, and it wasn't cooked by just one type of person. So I don't understand sometimes when people are like, well, like are afraid of immigration. And I'm like, well, that's what led to such like a beautiful culture that you supposedly love and now are trying to protect.
Yeah, anything good. Anything good is a mixture.
Yeah. So I think about that a lot, and it's kind of it's hard to talk about sometimes because there are some like really dark elements, of course, of Southern history that are still somehow like denied by people, and I don't understand that either. But I think there are parts that are definitely worth talking about. So
certainly, yeah. Which just to side note on it, your "Not My Southern Values" T-shirt, which I am a huge fan of, and I encourage everyone to listen to, look up and order one.
We'll post it. We'll post it for sure. We'll definitely post it.
Hey, thanks, y'all.
Also, another side note, it's hilarious to me as someone that grew up in the like very deep South, like very rural spot, to hear someone else say that they masked and did not want their Southern accents. Because that was absolutely me from like, my punk rock years on. It was like, I need to get rid of this. But now I've almost 40, I've come back to an appreciation for it.
Yeah, I don't know. When I moved to New York, I was working I still work at the Armory, and I have a colleague there who's from Alabama, and he's about my age, and he's like super successful. He's an interesting guy. He's got a doctorate in ornithology, but now is the like general manager of this place. And anyway, he's got like, there's no hiding where he's from when he speaks, right? Like he's got a very thick Alabama accent. And at first I remember being like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I was like, wow, no, that's cool. Actually, this guy is cool, man. This guy is like unabashedly, I mean, because he can't, like, there's nothing he can do about it. He's just unabashedly like from Alabama, and he's got the accent, and I'm like, yeah, nice.
and like
they're so good. It's so good to have an accent. I have the most boring voice in the world. It's the mid-Atlantic accent.
No, I don't know. I don't agree with that part, but but yeah, like I don't know where that. Actually, I guess I do know, because you mentioned earlier, like, kind of like almost like stereotypes of Southern people, and it's like pretty negative. Like, if you have that accent, maybe you're not educated, or maybe you're super racist or whatever. And so that's what I was feeling as a kid, and like also being embarrassed of being from a town of 1,500 people or whatever. And but yeah, now I have a little age and distance, and it's like something to be proud of, I guess.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So living in both very rural and urban, Nashville type parts of the South, would you say that has changed the way you both approach living and your attitude toward things, and also dressing?
And yeah, I mean, listen, it's much easier to be a dude or anybody really into clothes living in a metropolitan area, especially in New York, like, because it feels like everybody's really into clothes. And but when I go home to Midtown, I stick out, but that's just kind of how it is, and it's no big deal. Totally. But I also have grown to, like, when I mentioned earlier, like, Midtown is really working class. There's like a coal mine, or like if you're a little, or not a coal mine, but a coal plant. And if you're like a little luckier, you go work at the nuclear plants in Oak Ridge. Like, that's it. But it's always like working in a plant and like working class. And I came to appreciate those kind of clothes too, because they're like really practical. And I don't mean like the perfect chin strap chambray. I mean like the flame retardant, like polyester, blue, but not like just flat blue shirt, stuff like that kind of stuff. So it's like I mean, I live in a great place for clothes, and I get to see some of the best stuff in the world. And then also, like, I get to see these really practical clothes put to practical uses, and that's cool too. So, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that there's some conflict between your sort of southernness, like the gentility, the slow pace, and what goes on in New York City? Like, because I find it, and I used to love New York. Now I just terrible anxiety. It's like, I wish I could walk so fast. I can't walk fast enough.
Yeah, that's something that my mom complains about when I go home. She's like, "Why are you walking so fast?" And whatever. Like,
because you have
City
a
slicker.
emergency.
City. That's right. City. That's right. There's an emergency. I need to get to this one restaurant that we have in Midtown. Yeah. I would say I don't. I feel when I go home and I can relax into that like slowness, because it's like it can be really frustrating that like maybe it takes a couple days for somebody to call you back, or like maybe you're at a restaurant and the server is like being really slow with your order, or just like talking a lot and asking you, "Honey, how you doing?" and stuff like that. But it's kind of like given me a perspective being away from that and being in a fast-paced environment. And now when I go back to it, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I can appreciate it. I mean, I want it like all the time, but yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. It's a hard balance to strike between like the urgency in an actual city and then like the slowness of everything else in the like more rural parts. Like, it's very enjoyable, but sometimes you're also just like, okay, like I can't have this all the time, and I wish I could, but it just there's no possibility of that.
Yeah, New York has this funny way sometimes of making you feel like you couldn't live anywhere else, and that's not healthy either.
Yeah, certainly.
You start going to like you go. Yeah, my wife calls this like like almost like the Williamsburgification of like every little other city that we go to.
Right.
It's like, so it kind of feels like we just seek that out, and because we're just looking for New York, and sometimes if we can just get out of our head and be like, oh, this is cool. Like so I don't know. It's nice to have like those two really diverse experiences, like a town of 1,500 people, and that's home, and then also a city of, I guess, what are we, 8 million or something, and that's home too. So
yeah, I guess this kind of leads into what we're going to ask next. And we kind of discussed this or gotten into it a little bit already, but has being in New York really like impacted and affected your appreciation for like where you're from?
Yeah, in ways that I didn't even expect. There's like a new appreciation for the like a slower way of life, but also this is. Hopefully this isn't like too weirdly political, but it's made me like
go with it.
All right,
please.
All right, cool, great. All right, so I'm gonna. I was really. I was during the Black Lives Matter movement. I was really reassessing my education as a like a public school educated person in Tennessee, and I was having these moments. Like I had a conversation one time with a colleague who's from Australia, and we were talking about the American Civil War. I don't know why, but that's what we were. Maybe we're drinking. We're probably drinking. And
wait, is this Dick?
Yeah, this is Dick.
Okay,
yeah.
Dude, I want to get you on the show so bad. So like,
please
Dick,
do.
If you listen to this,
Dick, if you're listening, Ricky,
I've
please
never
get
met
on
you
the
in
show,
person.
man.
I find you absolutely hilarious, and
He is hilarious.
Dude, come on the pod.
Yeah, he's great. I'm lucky to consider him a friend. And anyway, I don't know why we were talking about that, but I just blurted out, well, Robert E. Lee was the better general. And I said that, and he like, yeah, right. And he looked at me. Yeah. And he looked at me, and I was like, why did I say that? Right? Like, so like I needed to be out of that like echo chamber sometimes. Like, I mean, where I went to college, I almost said where I went to university, hanging out with too many Brits, I guess, but like where I went to college, yeah, right. Like it was in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and there was a Civil War battle there, and nobody lets you fucking forget that there was a Civil War battle there. And like,
oh man,
yeah, and there's like always like reenactments and stuff like that. And so like I was like getting out of that like constant thing of like growing up hearing about like the war of northern aggression, and then like meeting people and like just day to day in a different area and talking about that, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And like,
I'm sorry to how, because as someone from up here, like, how discussed is the war of northern aggression? Because people were in southern areas of Annapolis, where I grew up, had Confederate flags and stuff. Yeah. And they were about it.
Sorry,
yeah, man. I mean, it's...
Before you go on, Jim, Connor, this could be a 3-hour-long conversation if we actually let it. Just FYI.
No, I know. It's a big, the whole thing is a big topic.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not... I am not the person. I'm not the expert on this stuff, and that's why. And I kind of learned that moving here and like trying to think about that, and then like basically BLM kind of accelerated that for me, and I was like thankful. I was like, oh, I have some things that I need to unlearn, or like, you know what I mean? That was like, and I think that's I hope that's like a healthy way to be, of being like, I was like taught some stuff that was weird, or like, whatever. And now I'm trying to figure that out. But
most people don't own it ever. Most people don't ever own it. So yeah, you've done it.
I hope so. I hope that like, people understand that, like, cause I mean, I was like literally taught that in public school. Do you know, that's not a child.
Yeah. You were a child. You were indoctrinated.
Yeah. It's a real thing. And like, there's,
it certainly is.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of, so to answer your question about how often do people talk about the Civil War, I wouldn't like, it's not a daily conversation, but it's more like, the framework of it is just different, because like it's been taught to everyone in a different way. It's like it's a rewriting of history that everybody kind of accepts. And if you don't accept that, like, you're the bad guy. Not in every
it's very, it's very bad even to say like the Civil War is about slavery. People will fight about that.
Oh, I've had that fight. I've had that fight.
To your point, it's not like a daily conversation, but I would call it a specter that just is overhanging all the time. Because,
that's right, and it like, and it's a specter. It's a ghost that's denied. Like, a lot of people can see it, but a lot more people are being pretend that they can't, and that's really sad.
Yeah. I grew up a half hour south of Chickamauga, so shout out Northwest Georgia.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I don't want this to be all heavy.
No, dude. This was a really interesting turn, and like, it's, I don't know, it's kind of like a fun part of seeing someone's development from A to B. So
yeah.
And we don't really talk this very often. Like, I think that the show at the outset, we had an idea of what we were going to be talking about, and it was going to be extremely political. And then as it happened, we didn't really touch it, and it was fine. But now I think we're kind of like, maybe we ought to get back to the thing.
Back
to the drawing board.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an interesting perspective on this, particularly because all three of us are from the South in one way, shape, or form. So.
Yeah. I guess you can. I don't know. I was thinking about it when I first started Tazworld. I was doing that, and then I was making a record with this guy who's also from the South, and I was like telling him about it and how, like, I was gonna tell these stories about Southern culture, and then also like really make people understand that I don't mean like the KKK and slavery and stuff like that. Like that's not okay. And there's a new South, and or there can be a new South. And he looked at me and he was like, dude, you're not going to change the world selling t-shirts. And like, so I understand that, like, I mean, this is also a podcast about clothing, and it might be hard to talk about politics, but like clothing, the best kind of clothing to me is culture, and like politics is part of culture. So yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's you kind of just outlined the idea that we have for the show. So
there it is. Yeah.
So you mentioned making a record. And I personally, I've known you for a couple of years via Instagram and whatnot. I know that you play music, and dude, your pandemic videos of you playing shit, they were some of the like best part of 2020 for me. Honestly.
Oh,
whoa!
Yeah, like it was just super fun to like see you going to town on this shit that I like. So, thank you. I don't know if I ever told you. I may have told you that before. I don't know, but
well, thanks for that. Yeah,
man.
I got a lot of positive feedback on those, which was
cool
because I like. Yeah, I mean, it was just like. Honestly, me just probably being 14 again for a little bit, right? And like
totally,
that was kind of.
I've also side note, it's like I've realized that a lot of the like music side of Instagram is so chill and just like super supportive of people trying to do whatever they're doing. Like even if I don't personally like it, I'm just like, oh, that's very pure.
Yeah, I find that too. It's not as like, I mean, obviously I know about like the like clothing Instagram and stuff like that, and I find that like way snarkier. But maybe that's because the industry itself is like way like. I find that if you're working in the clothing industry, you're like kind of defined more by what you don't like, and that means like that's kind of like a negative. Like, right. Off the back, it's kind of negative. So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, those videos were like, just. Me giving myself something to do every day, and then also like kind of rediscovering that I liked to do that thing. So yeah.
Okay. So going into music, have there been artists kind of over the years that have really like influenced you in terms of dressing and I feel like we all have those people we emulate, but
yeah, was
that a part of your kind of like clothing journey?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because I, like part of my job at the Armory and then my own thing, like, I hesitate to say I'm a designer, but I do develop products, and I like what I generally, when I'm doing that, I think about like a general kind of mood, and then I try to find people that match that mood and not the other way around. So like, when people ask me like what style icons, like that's kind of what you're getting at. I sometimes have them, but they change quite frequently, and it might be like one, like a person's hat one day, and that's it. So like right now, I have been thinking a lot about hats because I'm working on hats for Tazwell, and so I'm thinking about Hank Williams, and I'm thinking about Ronnie Van Zant,
nice.
Which is like a really which is a real like weird thing. And I don't think of Ronnie as like a style icon for me, really, but his hats were awesome. And so like, that's kind of like, that's what happens to me. Like when I put together the first, collection for Tazwell, I told people that, I wanted my clothes to look like they fit onto the record cover of Live at Fillmore East, the Allman Brothers live record. Nice. And so like all the people on that record, including the roadies on the back, those are like, for a little while, those were my style icons. Growing up, it would have been like, actually still Hank Williams, because my dad would listen to that. He would listen to Hank, and he would listen to Bill Monroe. So that kind of era of country music up into like basically the early 60s, the sequins, sort of, but not too many sequins yet. But the nudie suits and that kind of thing, that was like a big part of my childhood. Like my first favorite song was Hot Dog by Buck Owens. And Buck and the Buckaroos had like some great stage outfits.
Oh, totally.
So that was, yeah. So that was like, it's been cool for me to see like more and more people in like current fashion stuff, like looking at that, like nudie suits and like Western suits in general, and like old country music and stuff like that, and using that as style reference, because like I legitimately like grew up seeing those photos. Yeah. So those are some of my earliest. And then I was talking about this recently, actually, when this is kind of weird, but my in elementary school, like probably kindergarten, my style icon was Michael Jackson. So it's always been like some kind of musical artist. That feels weird to say now, that Michael Jackson was my style icon when I was 5, but that's true. I would dress up like I would wear, like, that was around the time of Black or White, and I would like dress up like him as best I could and like play that cassette single over and over again. So for whatever reason, like from like a pretty early on in my life, music and clothes have kind of been intertwined in that way. Like I think about them in really similar ways, and it's always like, when I think of a music artist, I almost always think about what the clothes they wore too. And then like sometimes if I'm developing a product or something, I like to put together a playlist or something, like to kind of set a mood. Like they're intertwined.
Yes. So the next question is sort of a 2-part question.
Okay.
There's a contrast between Southern rock and traditional menswear. How did you personally get from point A to point B? And then I was also wondering, how does it feel to be launching your brand when it seems like the things are becoming trendier and trendier and trendier, but it's your idea?
Well, okay, yeah, I'll just go chronological there. So, I don't necessarily think that like traditional menswear and then like Southern rock and country are like as divergent as they might seem at first. Like, there's a lot of tailored clothing, especially in like country music, or there's not so much anymore. But I also think about like, I know a lot of musicians that work in the fashion industry. And I think there's a connection, at least like, I think why musicians are drawn to that is that if you're on stage, whether you want to admit it or not, you think about how you're presenting yourself to an audience. And like, that's kind of the same idea in fashion. And with classic clothing, you're kind of thinking about people of a bygone era, and like now at this point, if you're playing Southern rock, you're thinking of people from 50 years ago. So you're still thinking of people from a bygone era. So I don't think they're as divergent. It's just like, it's maybe just a different genre, sort of. Yeah, but how I don't know, I guess how I got there, it's a similar idea, I guess, of when I was talking earlier about losing my accent. I was drawn to classic menswear, partially because I just like clothes, and I have my entire life. And I went to school I went to fashion school, and I learned about clothing construction, and I've made clothes in the past, and I like really liked. At first, I was attracted to the idea of classic clothes as craft, and learning about that. And then I kind of liked the idea of classic clothes as like dressing up to play a part. Like, and for me, for a little while, that kind of became like dressing up as like a rich old Italian dude, or like an 80s yuppie. and like that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, if you scroll up past the guitar photos on my or the guitar videos on my Instagram, you'll see me in like, you know, chalk stripe DB, and I'm like doing my best Gordon Gecko or whatever. But like, yeah. But eventually, I realized that like I also always liked like you know, Allman Brothers and Skinner, and then earlier like Hank Williams and Bill Monroe and Buck Owens, and I was thinking more like how to incorporate that, like how I like, you know, I denied my accent. I felt like I had been denying this other thing that I really liked, and I wanted to try to incorporate that. So I think the like as I like move forward with my own thing, and then like, as you know, whatever else I do in the industry, like I kind of want to keep exploring how to mix those different things together. It's like the same idea as playing an instrument. Like you have influences. Like my first main influence on guitar was Randy Rhoads, and then I got into some other people, and then like there was a hot second there was a jazz moment, and that didn't last very long. So now like when I play, I have all these different influences, and like I improvise, and it almost, you know, it's when I'm playing, I think, oh, I hardly ever play Randy Rhoads licks anymore, but like I think like, oh, that's a Jimi Hendrix lick, and then oh, that's maybe how Jimmy Bryant would have played something, and then like that's how Jim Campolongo would have played something, and like eventually that all mixes into something that's me, and I feel like I'm finally maybe figuring out how to mix all those elements of like from my youth of like the country music stuff, and then later when I was in high school into like the 70s rock stuff into the classic thing that I've been doing for like a decade. Did that answer the question? I think so.
I think so, dude.
Maybe not.
And that kind of honestly,
You're a good interview,
dude. So I'm just going to say our next question was, what does the product development process look like for Tazwell? And literally, I think you just answered it in the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Like
I hit it out of the park. Really?
Yeah, it's like, yo, you have the same view for what you're doing with that as you do for literally the rest of like the parts that fit into that. So I think that takes care of it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. I can get into the real nitty gritty if you want. But yeah,
man,
if you want
I think like I don't know, dude. That's just like that. While I was listening to the answer to that question, it hit me. I was like, oh, this is just what he's trying to do with Tazwell. Just like with that, you're doing cloth and buttons, and literally no other difference.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is like I've kind of told this story before, but like, so the first thing I put out for Tazwell was a record, which is stupid because I launched a clothing brand with a 7-inch single. But I like what happened. Why that happened is I was like I think most people that like have worked in a clothing store, like worked in the fashion industry, like I'd been thinking a little while about like doing my own thing, and I didn't know what I was doing, or like I didn't really want to own a retail store or whatever. But I was just walking around the village one day, and like suddenly the name, a few products, and a lot of that song all popped in my head, like just at once. And it was like, oh, this is like, for me, it's all kind of the same process. It's kind of strange, but like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's
works for us.
Yeah, dude, that's a beautiful, beautiful fucking series of things. Yeah, that all.
Yeah, you have exhaustive answers. You have total answers, which is.
I hope so.
It's like Connor and I talk about a bunch of this shit, and not to get too like, behind the scenes or whatever, but like. We talk about a lot of the interconnections between like music and clothing particularly. And then of course there's, 1,000,001 variations of things like that. But like, kind of hearing about what drives you to do your brand and to like start making your own thing. I don't know. It just like, it speaks to the heart of kind of what we want to get to with people.
Good.
Because that's That's a fucking answer.
I hope so.
You know,
I don't know. I find that I'm like less and less interested. I will talk to, of course, like, because I have to. I will talk to people about like, oh yeah, well the Tazwell 5-pocket pants have like double flat filled out seams and that kind of stuff. I'll talk about that, but I've found that like the people that actually get it on a like an emotional level, and that's where I'm at too. Like I mean I like craft, and I like I do not I mean I can't make patterns, but I talk with pattern makers a lot, and I like do sourcing, and I know technical stuff, and I do that for a living. But that's the only, like, if I really wanted to just do technical stuff all the time, I would do something that made me a lot more money. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, it's really hard to, like, I can't separate the music thing and the clothes thing, and I can't separate the emotional part. Like, sometimes I can. Like, part of my day job at the Armory is like making sure that the stores have enough Navy socks. Like, I'm not like I'm not writing a song about that, but like so that, like, day to day. But I think why anybody would get into this industry is because of the way the stuff makes you feel. So I'm just getting a little better at expressing that.
And no one ever says that. Like, nobody ever says that. People, as you said, people always say, I'm interested in the craft, I'm interested in this or that. But the point is, like, it's cool, right? Like, I like it because it's cool. I like it because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, I wish, like, the thing about, like, obsessing over details feels like such a real, like, dude bro hobby thing. And that's fine. Like, because also, like, if you're having clothes as a hobby is okay, but it feels like a lot of dudes especially are like need to have some kind of like justification for what they're doing. And like, it's fine if you're just like into that, but just say that. Like, I don't, like, I really dislike it when people say buy less, buy better, because that's like some kind of, for a couple of reasons. One, you've taken this like Dieter Rams quote and you've added the word buy to it twice. So you've like made it this capitalist manifesto for whatever fucking reason. You're just like, buy, great, thanks.
Woo!
And then and I'm sorry.
That is the painted rainbow flag sidewalk of quotes, like the buy less, buy better thing.
Yeah.
No, it's the fucking be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, true. Okay, yeah.
Which my boss just, like, has in his signature.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, there's always got to be this like practical reason, and like I get it, like the fucking like economy sucks and like things are expensive and like sure, fine, but also like if the t-shirt or the pair of pants or the shoes or whatever just like make your life a little bit better and you just like it, just be okay with that.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Exactly. Exactly. It's okay to enjoy things.
Yeah.
You like,
it's okay to enjoy them and
hurting somebody. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I also I was going to go on another tangent, but I need to form that before I just go off and piss off a lot of tailors. So
I'd be happy to have you on again.
Yeah. This is going to become a Jim Parker running segment. Just like, we can have a Bitch Fest episode about shit.
Yeah, that'll be another episode. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Sorry.
Oh no, dude, this has been awesome. But we do have one final question, which is the crux of the entire interview right here.
Oh.
How many guitars do you own at the moment?
Hold on. I'm in my spare room that I use for recording and stuff. So there's 5. I think it's 9. It's not that many. I think it's 9.
Okay.
I have one on loan. Yeah, it's 9 because they're 8 here, and then I have one on loan to a student. So 9.
Gotcha. Wait, do you teach guitar lessons also?
Yeah, that was something that I did a little bit in my 20s. And I stopped doing it when I moved to New York. And then after after the worst of COVID, I started playing out a lot, and occasionally people would ask me, like, hey, do you teach? And I was like, yeah. And then I started picking up students, and it's like super rewarding in a way that I didn't remember from when I was doing it previously. And yeah, it's been really great, actually.
That's awesome, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Jim, dude, thank you for coming on. It's been a really fun conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just as we're wrapping up, always want to give the guest a chance to shout out whatever they want to shout out. So go for it.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I just got a bit of press and Rob report about my little brand Tazwell Clothes. Check that out. You can go to the website. It's tazwellclothes.com, or my Instagram at Tazwell Clothes. You can also, if you want to see me play guitar and you're in New York, you can come out every Friday to this little honky tonk called Skinny Dennis. I play with a band called the National Reserve. I'm there every Friday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. So trying my best to shred my fingers off. So come out.
Nice. Also, spell Tazwell, because this is going to
yeah.
people.
It's yeah, sure. It's Tazewell. It looks like Tazewell, but please don't say that.
Yeah. This was a conversation prior to our interview that Connor and I had.
Yeah. Yeah, I never expected that. Because I heard Tazwell my whole life.
Right.
And then the first person was like Tazewell, and I was like, oh shit. Well, too late now. So
again, back to the English language being absolutely ridiculous. So.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, silent E's, whatever, man. That's weird.
It's literally my job.
Yeah. All right. So, everyone, thank you for listening. Jim, thanks again for coming on. If you have
pleasure.
questions, comments, concerns, or just want to say or send us a funny meme, apocalypseduds@gmail.com, at apocalypseduds on Instagram. I'm Matt Smith at Rebels Rogues.
And I'm Connor Fowler at Connor Fowler.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.